You know what's odd? If you watch anything, any movie, whatever, that's based in the future, you never see speakers or headphones anywhere. Sound just kind of shows up out of nowhere.
So is that the way it's going?
Yeah, well, that's the question.
Could?
Yeah.
Is that the future?
Yeah, 200 years from now, right? Are we going to be listening to headphones? Are we going to need them anymore?
It's just disembodied voices coming from
What's
somewhere.
a curious thing? Is that something that people want? Do you want to just have magical music that's perfect, that sort of just exists? And beyond that, do you even need it to actually produce the audio at all? Couldn't you just like magically hear it through some sort of like brain connection thing?
Yeah, like Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Like, where the hell's the speakers in that place?
Well, there's only one I could think of. Uhura had that thing she shoved in her ear.
Oh, yeah.
But by Next Generation, they figured out that technology and they didn't
Yeah.
need it anymore.
Yeah, she had it in here.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what a phone, someone that's on a phone all day would use.
Yeah.
But yeah, bottom line though is that I mean they don't have any transducers showing anywhere. Any, you think about it. Companies have tried to do that. They'll make like a speaker out of a painting or something like that, and invariably it sounds like doo-dah.
Yeah, well, there's compromises and hiding things.
It is
right?
possible, though.
Yeah.
The reason why we haven't seen a lot of emphasis on that type of technology is because it's kind of hard already just to make really good sound, to make fantastic sound. So to make it fantastic, also make it like just blend in seamlessly, well, that's a lot more complicated.
Yeah, they're kind of like what you said. They're opposing things. Like
Right, very difficult.
to make a speaker not be seen but yet sound good doesn't. It's a conflict of interest.
And it needs to sound good anywhere in the room then.
Oh, right.
That's the other problem. I mean, because technically currently with like, smart speakers now, we have, play whatever song and it'll play, but it won't sound like, normal speakers.
Did anyone
you
make a speaker that follows you around yet? Like,
I'm sure it exists.
a robotic
Sort of,
speaker,
yeah,
or
robot.
how the cameras will follow. Nowadays the
right.
AI is following you.
Well,
speaker.
presumably that is a bit of an extension of that, where you could have some sort of beamforming with audio to kind of sort of selectively steer the audio more towards a specified target.
Yeah.
Because they do that with things like video, and you could do it with kind of sort of with microphones. So it's plausible that it's possible with audio. I don't know if someone's specifically targeting that approach. I'm sure someone's doing approaches sort of like that, but for different reasons.
I imagine they would, if you made something like that, the problem would be who would want to buy it.
How do you really
make
sell
it
it,
for
market it,
yourself.
and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that seems like a tough thing to do, But yeah, a speaker that always keeps you in the sweet spot, right? A set of speakers that are like, if you move to the left 2 feet, they aim themselves to the left 2 feet.
That's one of those
you
things
can do that
that
electronically.
Right. That's one of those things that I think that someone would do eventually, but it's not really a thing that you could advertise that easily to really market it because it's kind of confusing. It requires education on the consumer's part. So I think for the most part, that's the type of thing that someone would do and not really say anything about, and it would just work better for the application they're trying to target.
What are they
and then
doing?
people would be like, wow, it works great.
Aren't they doing that with the goggles and all that now? Isn't that stuff made to follow your head motion or something
Yeah.
like that, or your
Right.
body?
Yeah, it'll do
motion?
like body tracking stuff, yeah.
It's tracking you in.
But it's more of
space.
a visual thing than an audio
Well,
thing?
the audio does it too,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, with just audio in general, music and that type of thing, is it going to go in that direction where people do their best to get rid of the wires, the boxes, the headphones, everything, and it's just, it exists in space, it somehow works, and it's spectacular? And beyond that, can you make it so that it only works for you, so that you see nothing, but only you hear the audio?
Well, you suggested too about the type of music they play in the future. Right?
Well, yeah, they always play old music. Old music today, right?
Yeah.
Classical. Right?
No one's come up with any modern music 300 years
That's
from
probably
now.
too
What's
hard.
music
Yeah,
gonna
like
sound
the
like?
500-year-old music.
Yeah,
in the
right.
future, yeah.
That's kind of wild when you think
Yeah.
about that, But
I don't know if that's actually foreshadowing there, or if them just saying like we don't want to
Yeah, you
play
don't
like
wanna,
some
yeah,
rap
make
or
something
something,
up.
and it'd
right.
be polarizing. So
Oh,
it's
that's
just,
true. Or are there just no more musicians
Well,
in
and
the
there's
future?
there's no copyright problems either then too.
Yeah. Oh, that's
That
true
too,
too.
yeah.
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 Oh, all these problems
Yeah,
going
yeah.
Problems.
forward in the future.
I'm sure someone knows the answer, but
But you look
made
at
it.
like speakers that we see a lot of now. That's sort of been vaguely getting more adopted now. Your little Wi-Fi, Bluetooth home speaker things, like whatever, it's Sonos and what's the Apple one? HomePod.
yeah.
Yeah, those are doing pretty well, right? It's very common to see people use those.
Well, it's kind of a modern take on distributed audio.
Right.
right.
know,
It's a
Easy
vastly
to
superior
use.
system.
Yeah.
than
No
distributed
wires,
audio.
Yeah.
no
'Cause
installation.
Yeah, right. Just plug
Every
it
time
in.
you've heard any of those in the fancy houses with the speakers everywhere, they almost always sound bad.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it's cool, I guess, but if it sounds awful,
Yeah, it's.
do you want it?
It's barely useful for
And it's so
background music.
complicated and expensive. Yeah, it's not worth it. And there's better systems and whatnot now, but I'm surprised the systems like that have been lagging for such a long period of time. They're not good. Occasionally I see one in some fancy house somewhere or in a video online or whatever, and it's just,
Well, that's kind of
I
like
don't
the
want
future
it.
if you think about it. Like you said, the Sonos and stuff like that. Any
It's
of
a
these
stepping stone.
where you can actually just speak to the thing,
Right.
Yeah.
say, "Play me this."
Well, that's
in
a big step.
It's but
Yeah,
you still need
know?
hardware. There's still hardware that you need to put somewhere.
Yeah,
and you
right.
can see it.
Yeah.
It needs to be like somehow in the wall.
Well, I don't know if
somewhere.
that'll ever go away, but yeah. Can you? Yeah. Well, so basically, the walls have to be turned into a transducer.
Well, there is an ultimate solution.
Yeah.
You just need a holodeck, right? That solves all the
Yeah,
problems.
right.
It's just a blank room.
well, honestly, I don't think
Things
we're
are
that
made.
far off. There's a lot of issues with solving something like that, but if you look at the trends, I think we are sort of moving towards that. That does actually look like what consumers want. And I understand that as well. I have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi speaker things at home, and they're convenient, right? They do certain functionalities, but inevitably the assistants in them, the Wi-Fi, smart internet things that they put in there that you could ask questions to or whatever, they don't work the way you expect. You ask questions, it doesn't really give you a great answer most of the
No.
time, right? So you could see you start putting in some sort of whiz-bang AI stuff, right? You know, if you get the like 100 years in the future version of GPT-4 and you build that into your speaker, and your speaker gets smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where you barely even see it exists, we're moving towards that type of holodeck vision
Maybe.
where it's just
I don't know.
like everything exists.
It's funny. It seems like as things get smaller, they tend to get bigger again.
Yeah, well, look at
know,
phones. Phones did that.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
was making smaller and smaller cell phones.
You reach a
and now
point
they're
where it's
going
like,
bigger and bigger.
why are we trying to make it this small? Like, to what end? It's like, because
Yeah.
everything has to be miniaturized.
It seems like there's two things there.
You know?
You see a lot of that. It seems initially people show the device, they're like, wow, this is amazing. And then they say, well, can we make it smaller? Like the old cell phones were a big brick, right? And people
guess
were like,
it's
well,
a
that's
challenge.
inconvenient. And then it was technically interesting. You keep
Yeah.
making it smaller. Now this is a
Well,
little
watches
thing.
are like that, right?
But when ends up
Thinner and
happening,
thinner.
it gets to the point where you get mass adoption, right? And then people are like, this is a great apparatus, but if only we could solve this issue, if it could only be faster, longer battery life, bigger display, things like this. And so it almost always necessitates making the device physically bigger to be able to meet those demands with current technology.
Well, we are on that exact path now that I think of it, though.
Yeah.
Because, we're making stuff smaller and smaller now, but it will have to get... Eventually, we'll just have a room
a room.
that you go in, and it's a
room.
holodeck, and it makes whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
And
Everyone would want that.
That's
That'd
right.
be kind of cool.
So If you could make it
you would
cheap.
actually have to have a room-sized device then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I could see having a room,
Yeah.
whatever that room is that you go into to chill.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the man cave of today or whatever, or
could see
women
that
have their
potentially
rooms or their
happening.
garden things or, a greenhouse.
Yeah, well,
or-
right now you're just trying to trick yourself to be in a room with, VR and all that. But
Yeah.
the ultimate goal would make a huge room where it's just seamless. Right?
If you look at the current rate of acceleration of technology, I think it is pretty encouraging because it seems quite likely that VR is going to slowly get adopted more rapidly as the technology gets to the point where it's very feasible, inexpensive to deliver a great experience. And Apple allegedly has been working on a VR headset for some time. So if they deliver one that's like some M6 chip integrated into this thing and it does, a million K at a million FPS and it's wireless and small and convenient, and they continue to iterate, you could see where that would go. It would take people into an experience they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And it would kind of it would open up a market that isn't there right now.
Well, and they're
if you
doing the same
extrapolate,
thing for audio, obviously, right
Yeah.
now with Atmos. And
right.
so that's clearly where they're going.
Right.
is VR and
they're
3D
able to,
audio.
Yeah,
and
they'll be
stuff.
able to steer the audio.
So
yeah.
for the meantime, I guess the answer to the question is, still have headphones and VR headsets for a long time, but eventually maybe we'll get rid of them and have a room where you just don't need
Sound
all
will
that.
just come out of somewhere.
That's right.
You'll talk to the wall, and the wall will talk back to you.
Presumably that would be the dream because why bother having the hardware if you could not and get the same experience?
Yeah.
But I think we're a ways off. Either
bit.
way, exciting times because you look at the last few hundred years of change and evolution. I think we're in a point where it's way more rapid than it has been historically. So it'll be exciting to see where these things go, if it actually ends up doing something thrilling, or it could be it just doesn't work.
Like 3D TVs.
Yeah, that didn't
That
go
was like
anywhere.
the next thing.
I think we're going to need
They
new,
don't exist.
new instruments for the musicians, too.
Space future instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need some really baller guitars, man.
Space guitar
yeah, cool. With
from
no
the
strings.
future.
Oh, it doesn't have strings.
Yeah.
Oh, it's lasers. It uses
Call it
lasers.
wireless. Lasers, yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, everyone, thanks for watching our blabber. Take care of yourselves.